Yes.
Recording in progress.
So we go to economics chapter 32, living standards. We're talking about living standards. We're talking about the quantity and quality of material goods and services that are made available for a given economy or for a given population. That's what living standards is about. So let's say
Quantity and quality.
of material goods and services that are available for a given population. That's living standards. Clear, right?
Yes.
So let's go down. Introduction. They said one of the key roles of an economist can be seen to be to raise people's living standards by helping to improve the performance of firms and advising governments on increasing macroeconomic performance. Economists can make a significant difference to the quality of people's life. You see what I told you about the quality and quantity of goods and services in terms of materials that are available for a given population. So that's what they're saying there, that economists could advise government on how to improve the quality of life people have. So do you think you enjoy a high living standard than people living in your country 50 years ago? What would you look at in making this comparison? So this is where we have to talk about the indicators of living standards. So we move on. So they said indicators of living standards. There are a variety of indicators that can be used to assess the living standards in a country. This includes the number of people or households that own a given consumer goods, such as cars, laptops, mobile phones, and TVs. The number of patients per doctor enrollment in tertiary education, the adult literacy rate, the average, that means we're talking about the adults, the rate, how educated they are, the adults. The average food intake per person and the conduct of free elections in the country can also be examined. So a main measure of living standards, however, is still probably the real GDP per head, which is GDP divided by the population. So there are also composite indicators such as what we call the Human Development Index, HDI, or Genuine Progress Indicator, GPI. So these are different countries. We have Puerto Rico, Luxembourg, Iceland, Malta, and the rest. And these are their population. Then we have the internet user per 100. We have the mobile phone subscriptions per 100 people. So this gives us a clue on the living standards of the people in these countries. I think that is clear. So they said the top 10 countries in terms of highest car ownership, internet users, and mobile phone subscription 2014. So these are the top 10 countries that uses mobile phone and internet and cars. Do you get it?
Yes.
So this weighs up about their living standards. So they have better living standards. That's the point there. So we go down. So real GDP per head as an indicator. So now we have to check these indicators. So we start with the GDP per head or GDP per capita, which is, like I told you earlier, is GDP divided by the population. So what do they say about using it as an indicator of the living standards? They said an increase in real GDP per head would suggest that the living standards have risen, but it may not necessarily indicate the real situation for a number of reasons. One is that the real GDP is an average. Not everyone may benefit from a rise in the average income level. The extra income may be unevenly spread, with a few receiving much higher income and some not receiving any extra income. We can use the GDP per head to calculate as an indicator of living standard, but it is an average. It does not necessarily mean that the whole population are enjoying a rise in income. So it might be that certain group of people, minority of the population, have enjoyed a rise in their income, but it will affect the whole population. Look, it's going to affect the average population, but does not mean that each individual will benefit from that rising in income. So it might be like you might have billionaires. You might have a lot of billionaires in the country. So when you use the GDP of billionaires to calculate the GDP per head, it's going to cut across the whole population. But one individual or minority of those individuals are the ones that have that huge amount of money. So that's the criticism about using real GDP. Because when you use real GDP as an indicator for living standard, it does not equally says that each individual in that country has the same rise in income.
Yes.
So just like we have 10 people here, you out of the 10 people, 3 of them has millions, and the rest have thousands. When you calculate the average, when you calculate the GDP per head here, it will still round to be million. But most of them don't have million. But because the population is less and few of them has million, few of them have million, it will still cut like everybody has million.
Yes.
Do you get it?
Yes,
That's what they are talking about, real GDP. So, higher output will okay, that's about real GDP. Now they said, higher output will obviously mean that more goods and services are being produced, but not all of these may add to people's living standards. For example, an increase in the output and consumption of tobacco may actually reduce the quality of people's life by affecting their health and life expectancy adversely. So a rise in police service due to a higher crime rate is also unlikely to improve most people's living standards. So here we're talking about the output. Yeah, there are some outputs, when you think about them, they are demerit goods. So if they continue to increase, they will cut short people's life.
Yes.
So people will not be enjoying a quality living standard, a quality life, because it's a life full of health issues.
Yes,
Do you get it?
Yes.
So now they made the example of using an increase in police services as a result of high crime rates. So there's high crime rate. That is why we're having increased police services.
Yes.
So that means it doesn't work. It does not correlate. That does not give a good living standard. That means the environment, the society is full of chaos. Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's about output. Now they said increase in real GDP per head figures may understate the products available to people due to undeclared economic activity and non-marketed output. It may, however, overstate it if the quality of output is falling. Living standards are also influenced by other factors besides the material goods and services produced. If output rises but working conditions deteriorate, the number of working hours increases or pollution increases, people may not feel better off. When we talk about, the last point they are making is about the quality of output. Some quality might affect, based on what we talk about tobacco. Yeah, they're talking about, they are using pollution, they are using working condition deteriorating. So if output has to increase at the detriment of workers having to work more hours at workplace, how does that correlate with a better living standard? They will have issues at the end of it because their health will also deteriorate. Their rights are not protected, but output is increasing. So if output is increasing, it will affect the real GDP, yes or no?
Yes.
But does this really affect the living standard? How do we know about that? When output is increasing as a result of workers working more hours, when output is increasing as a result of increase in pollution, this makes the population to be worse off.
It will have a cost.
It has a cost, a social cost. So there are social effects, social cost effects here. So real GDP might not be a good indicator of comparing a living using as an indicator. Real GDP might not be a good indicator of living standard.